I've been to dozens of birthday parties in my life, some extravagant, some forgettable, but none of them ever felt like this. Not one of them left a permanent dent in my chest the way Hannah's 28th did. You don't expect your relationship to start unraveling in front of a crowd in your own living room while Mr. Brightside blares in the background. But that's exactly what happened. From the start, something felt off. It was subtle, but I picked up on it like a splinter under the skin. The decorations were typical Hannah, meticulously curated pastel balloons, glittery banners, and cheese boards that looked straight off some influencer's Instagram. She'd been planning it for weeks, texting me spreadsheets about the drink menu and RSVPs like it was a wedding. I was supposed to feel proud of her. Instead, I felt excluded. Like I wasn't in on the theme this year. Then Shane showed up. Now, I had heard about Shane. He was one of those high school legends Hannah had brought up from time to time. Oh, Shane used to DJ back in the day, or Shane was hilarious in senior year. I knew they hadn't talked in years, and I assumed stupidly that he was just a dusty old memory. But she lit up when he walked in. I mean full-on fireworks, hugging him so tightly I heard her laugh catch in her throat. She leaned into him like they were sharing some inside joke the rest of us weren't cool enough to understand. I stood near the kitchen island, watching her greet him like he was a soldier returning from war. And not once, not a glance, did she introduce me. He looked me up and down later, half smiled, then turned his attention back to her like I wasn't worth the acknowledgement. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I had no reason to feel jealous. This was her night. Maybe I should just grab a beer, make small talk with people I barely knew, and chill. But the thing is, when you've been with someone long enough, you pick up on the subtle shifts. The way their voice lifts an octave when they're excited. The way their eyes sparkle just a little more around certain people. Watching Hannah around Shane felt like watching someone else entirely, someone I didn't recognize, but everyone else seemed totally fine with. As the night picked up, someone brought out a game. I think it was called Drink or Dare, some awkward millennial spin on the classics. People sat in a messy circle on the living room rug, laughing as dares got more suggestive. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I didn't want to be that guy, the controlling boyfriend who K*LLS the vibe. So I sat down next to Hannah, wrapped an arm around her waist, and tried to enjoy myself. The bottle spun. Some girl dared her boyfriend to take a body *T. Another guy had to text his ex something embarrassing. Everyone was tipsy and loose by then, and the room felt almost dreamlike, warm light, echoing laughter, a haze of wine and cider hanging in the air. Then the bottle landed on Hannah. Of course it did. The guy next to her, a friend of Shane's I'd never met, smirked and said, "Okay, Han. Dare." Without hesitation, she grinned. "Let's hear it." The guy glanced at Shane and chuckled. "Let Shane touch you. Wherever he wants. For 5 seconds. Now look, anyone with half a brain knows that's not a normal dare for someone in a relationship." I expected her to laugh it off, maybe toss a pillow at him and say next. But she didn't. She looked at Shane, held eye contact, and then, God help me, she shrugged and leaned back on her elbows. "I trust you," she said, like it was some sweet little joke between soulmates. And Shane? He didn't hesitate. His hand went straight to her upper thigh. Not her knee. Not her shoulder. Her thigh. High up. Too high. The room exploded into awkward laughter, whoops, and someone shouted, "Damn, Hannah," like it was some comedy sketch. My jaw clenched. I couldn't move. For 5 excruciating seconds, his hand stayed there. Maybe longer. She didn't flinch. She didn't look uncomfortable. In fact, she laughed loud, carefree, like I wasn't sitting 2 feet away watching the foundation of our relationship crack wide open. I stood up, not even sure what I was doing. My heart was racing and my hands had gone cold. I went to the kitchen under the pretense of grabbing a drink, but really I just needed to breathe. When she followed me a few minutes later, still holding her wine like it was a joke I wasn't in on, I tried to keep my voice level. "What the hell was that?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "Colin, come on." "I'm serious," I said. "That wasn't okay." She sipped her drink. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. He put his hand on you. In front of everyone. And you didn't stop it." She gave me this exasperated sigh, like I was being immature. "It was a game. You don't trust me." "That's not the point," I said, struggling to keep my voice down. "It's about respect." "Oh my God, you're jealous," she said, laughing. "Wow. I didn't think you'd be that guy tonight." "That guy." She said it with such dismissal it felt like a slap. She walked away before I could say anything else, rejoining the party like nothing had happened. I stood there, blinking at the wall, trying to understand what had just occurred. The rest of the night went on in a blur. People danced. Someone spilled wine on the rug. The music stayed too loud. At one point, Shane and Hannah sang a duet on the karaoke machine, some stupid 2000s throwback they both knew word for word. I sat on the couch, beer in hand, pretending to smile when people made jokes, but I wasn't really there anymore. Something inside me had fractured. It wasn't just the dare. It was the way she looked at him. The way she defended him. The way she humiliated me without blinking. And maybe most of all, it was the way everyone else just accepted it. Like I was the only one who saw something horribly wrong with what had happened. We didn't fight that night. We didn't talk about it. She passed out drunk and I laid next to her in bed staring at the ceiling, wide awake. But I knew something had shifted between us. Something irreversible. I didn't have proof. I didn't even have a plan. But I had a feeling. And that feeling wasn't going anywhere. The morning after the party, I woke up before her. She was still asleep, face turned to the wall, one hand hanging over the edge of the bed, nails still painted in that shimmering peach color she chose for the night. For a moment, I just stared at her, wondering how someone could look so peaceful after what happened. Wondering how I had been so blind. I got up, made coffee, and sat on the balcony with it, just watching the morning traffic. I didn't touch my phone. I didn't turn on any music. I just sat. My thoughts weren't racing, exactly. They were methodical. Cold. Like I was rearranging pieces on a board, trying to make sense of the bigger picture. The thing is, once that seed of doubt is planted, once you start truly seeing someone after an emotional hit like that, it's almost like a switch flips in your brain. And suddenly, things that used to seem sweet or quirky, they don't feel so harmless anymore. It started small. I began tracing backward in my head, reviewing every odd moment that had seemed insignificant until now. Her wardrobe had definitely changed. That was the first clue I could remember clearly. Not overnight, but subtly. She used to wear oversized hoodies and soft jeans around the apartment, especially in the winter. But in the last couple of months, it was always something fitted. Stylish. She'd joke about trying to feel confident again, which I supported. Of course I supported it. But now I wondered who was the confidence for. Then there were the late-night gym sessions. I never questioned them at the time. She had signed up at a new boutique place across town that stayed open until midnight. I remember being proud of her dedication. But suddenly, the details felt out of sync. She always came back freshly showered, smelling like some Eunice *X soap I didn't recognize. One night I offered to come with her, even joked that I could use the cardio. Her response? She laughed, but not in the way that invites you in. Babe, it's not really your vibe. You'd hate it. Your vibe. That one stung in hindsight. It was like she was drawing lines around her world, lines that didn't include me. Another thing I couldn't unsee now, her phone. Always on silent. Always face down. Sometimes she'd take it into the bathroom when she showered, which wasn't like her at all. Once or twice, I walked into the room and saw her quickly swipe something off the screen like a reflex, then force a casual smile. I should have asked more questions. I should have trusted my gut when it started pulling at me. And then there were the emergency visits to her aunt. That's what she called them. Aunt Lisa needs help with the yard. Lisa's feeling depressed. I should go be with her this weekend. I didn't want to be the guy who questioned her family obligations. I always told her, of course, go. She's lucky to have you. But now? Now I realize she never took photos with Lisa. Never posted from her place. Not once. There were no inside jokes from those weekends, no random stories about her cousins. Just vague remarks like, it was a lot or she's doing better now. One night, probably a month before the party, I was doing laundry and found a crumpled receipt in the pocket of her jeans. It was from a cafe I'd never heard of on the opposite side of town. I remember asking her about it in passing, just making conversation. She said, oh yeah, I went there with Jen from work. She's obsessed with that place. Except I remembered, days later, Jen posting photos from an entirely different city that same week. Visiting her sister, I think. At the time, I brushed it off. People forget details. No big deal. But when I thought about that receipt now, paired with the gym, the new outfits, the phone, the party, it all started to form a pattern. A pattern I didn't want to see, but couldn't unsee anymore. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was a growing realization that my life wasn't what I thought it was. I spent the rest of that weekend pretending. Pretending I was okay. Pretending her laugh didn't sound forced. Pretending her phone vibrating in the next room didn't feel like a ticking bomb. We watched a movie on Sunday night, some forgettable rom-com she picked out, and I remember sitting there, numb, wondering how many scenes in her life I'd never been cast in. By the time Monday rolled around, I had made a quiet decision. I was going to stop giving her the benefit of the doubt. Not out of spite. Not out of paranoia. Out of self-preservation. I'd spent so long assuming the best of her that I didn't notice how much I was minimizing my own discomfort. How I'd let little boundaries get crossed because I didn't want to be the jealous boyfriend. But there's a difference between being insecure and being right. That week, I started paying closer attention. Not snooping, not invading her space, just observing. Listening. I noticed how she got more defensive when I asked simple questions. How she started showering at the gym instead of at home. How she stopped telling me where she was going unless I asked directly. And when I did ask, her answers came too quickly. Like they'd been rehearsed. Just going to Target. Meeting a friend from book club. Running errands. Which errands? Which friend? What book? I wasn't trying to trap her. I just wanted the truth. But every answer felt like a deflection. A well-placed detour to keep me from asking follow-ups. One night, I asked to borrow her car because mine was low on gas. She froze just for a second, but I saw it. That flicker of hesitation. "Oh, I already promised Amanda I'd give her a ride later," she said. Amanda. Another name that had started showing up in her stories more often. Always mentioned, never seen. I didn't push it. I just nodded and filled my own tank. But I started writing things down after that. Not obsessively, just a log. Where she said she was. What time she left. What time she came back. It was like keeping receipts on my own sanity. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. That weekend, she told me she was going to a cabin retreat with her girlfriends. They'd done it before, once a year, to unplug, reset, drink wine, and talk about life. I believed it. I even helped her pack. She took the good camera. Said she wanted to take nature *TS. When she left, I stood at the door for a long time. Longer than I should have. Watching her car disappear down the road, I felt like I was watching the last sliver of sunlight sink beneath the horizon. A sunset on whatever was left of our relationship. She texted me that night. "Made it. No service here, but just wanted to say I love you. Don't worry if you don't hear from me tomorrow." That message used to make me feel loved. Now it just made me feel shut out. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen somehow louder than usual. My mind wasn't racing, it was calculating. Adding up the things I knew. Subtracting the lies. Trying to figure out what was still real. And here's what I landed on. I didn't know for sure that she was cheating. But I knew something was wrong. And that was enough. By the time Hannah got back from her retreat, I had already stopped believing a single word she said. But I played along. Smiled when she walked through the door. Helped carry in her bag. Listened to her talk about the crazy raccoon that tried to steal their snacks and how one of the girls got tipsy on boxed wine and tried to start a bonfire in the rain. I even laughed. God help me, I laughed at that story. But underneath, I was cold. Mechanical. Watching everything. Her tone. Her body language. How she skipped over names. How she never showed me a single photo from the trip even though she took that fancy mirrorless camera. When I asked about it, she said the battery died on the first day. Total busk *LL, she shrugged. Except I saw her post one photo later that week. Just a lake. No people. No timestamp. No proof. At this point, suspicion had transformed into something else, resolve. I wasn't spinning in circles anymore. I had direction. I had a plan. She had an old tablet, one she barely used anymore. It was an old iPad she used to bring on trips, mostly for movies or the occasional book download. She hadn't touched it in at least a year. But I remembered something important. Once, months ago, she mentioned it still auto-synced to her cloud backup. She complained about it randomly while we were cooking dinner, laughing at how her notes app had duplicated grocery lists from 2022. So, one night, when she passed out on the couch after too much wine and an episode of some cooking show she loved, I retrieved the tablet from the hallway closet. It booted up slow, but it booted. Passcode? Same as her birthday. She never changed it. I wasn't sure what I'd find. I half expected nothing. Maybe a few old photos, notes, or *TS of Pinterest recipes. But I didn't expect folders. Not organized ones, anyway. There were two. One was labeled Wellness Retreat. The other? Just initials, S+H. My stomach turned. I tapped the first folder. It looked innocent at first, some photos of a cabin. Woods. A picnic spread. But then I found a video. No thumbnail. Just a black screen with a timestamp. I hit play. The screen lit up with footage from a hallway, clearly from a mounted indoor camera. A woman, Hannah, walked into frame. She was laughing, holding a bottle of wine. A man followed behind her. Tall. Tan. Dark hair. Shane. They were holding hands. I paused the video. My hands were shaking. The timestamp? It matched the same weekend she said she was with her girlfriends. Right down to the day, the time 11:42 p.m. Saturday night. I hit play again. They dropped their bags in the hallway. She leaned into him. Kissed him. I stopped it. I didn't want to see the rest. I didn't need to. My mind went blank and buzzing all at once. It was like being underwater. Everything was muffled, distant, unreal. But I knew what I had. It was real. It wasn't a dream. I felt the tablet's weight in my lap like a brick. The second folder, S+H, was worse. It wasn't photos or videos. It was *TS. Chats. DMs. Text messages. I don't know what messaging app they used, but the conversations were exported like someone had made a backup. At first, I couldn't make sense of them, just disjointed lines. Missed you today. He's so clueless. I hate lying, but you're worth it. This weekend's gonna be perfect. I booked the house already. The dates stretched back months. She hadn't just slipped. She hadn't just made a mistake. This wasn't one weak moment, it was a pattern. A second life. A full-scale betrayal built on layers of planning and deception. There were messages that made my chest physically hurt. He still thinks I'm with my aunt. Poor guy. Promise me you'll be gentle with me this time, face-blowing kiss. He's sweet but weak. You get me in a way he never will. That one stuck with me, he's sweet but weak. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't slam the tablet down or curse her name. I just sat there, absorbing it. Letting it settle. If pain was an ocean, I was treading water in the deepest part, staring up at the surface and deciding whether or not to swim back up. Eventually, I moved. I grabbed a flash drive from my desk drawer and copied everything. Videos. *TS. Metadata. I even exported the file directory and folder structure. Then I uploaded the same files to cloud storage under a new email address. Password protected. Labeled. Redundant backups. One on a hard drive. One in the cloud. One in a private encrypted folder. I didn't know yet what I'd do with them. But I knew I couldn't let this disappear. I needed something real. Something that wouldn't disappear if she decided to accidentally wipe the tablet. I wasn't about to let this gaslight me out of reality. After I backed it up, I powered off the tablet, wrapped it in an old t-shirt, and placed it right back in the closet. Same shelf. Same spot. I didn't want her to suspect anything yet. I needed her to stay in the dark. The next day, I watched her pour coffee into my mug. Her voice light, cheerful. She mentioned an office happy hour. You'd hate it, she said. Corporate karaoke. I might just duck out early. I nodded. Smiled. Said, have fun. She kissed my cheek and left. I stood at the sink, watching her drive off through the kitchen window, and I felt a calm come over me. Not peace. Not satisfaction. But clarity. That kind of focus you only get after hitting rock bottom and finding out you're still alive. That night, while she was gone, I printed the key *TS, just the ones with their names. Their conversations. The photo of them holding hands. The quote about me being weak. I slid them into a manila folder and labeled it in thick black marker, truth. Then I placed it in my desk drawer and locked it. I started digging deeper after that. Not obsessively, just methodically. I combed through shared statements. Old calendar invites. Her photo timestamps. I wasn't looking to punish her. I wasn't looking to confront her yet. I just wanted the whole picture. And the picture got uglier. There were payment transfers, small ones, from her to an account that wasn't labeled. I tracked the routing numbers. Found they were tied to Shane's old business. He had been trying to get into freelance web design, and she had been helping him get on his feet. That's what she told me back in February. I believed her. Then there were overlapping events, nights she said she was at work but marked on her calendar as meeting SH. Clever. Easy to overlook. Until you knew what to look for. I gathered it all. **TED it. Cataloged it. She had her story. But now so did I. It wasn't about catching her anymore. I had already done that. It was about reclaiming my own sense of truth. My own sanity. I needed to know I wasn't crazy. That the gut feeling I had since the party, maybe even before, was real. That I had been right to listen to it. And now I had proof. Irrefutable. Undeniable. After the initial wave of shock wore off, I felt something I hadn't expected, control. Not peace. Not closure. But control. Like I was no longer drifting through a storm, I was steering the ship now. And I wasn't going to crash. I wasn't going to explode or lash out or beg for an explanation. No. That would have made her the center of the story again. This part? This was mine. I didn't confront her. Not yet. She came home from her happy hour that night a little buzzed, giggling as she kicked off her heels in the hallway. She said she missed me. kissed me on the cheek, called me her rock. I watched her without blinking, memorized how she smiled as she microwaved leftover pasta. She had no idea what I knew. That gave me the upper hand and I intended to keep it. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I sat at my computer and typed out a list. Not emotional reactions or plans for revenge, just a checklist. What I had. What I needed. What I had to protect. I titled the document, Exit Strategy. First step, legal prep. I didn't want to make assumptions about how she'd react when everything came out, but I wasn't going to be naive either. I reached out to a lawyer I found through a discreet referral. His name was Patel. Clean-cut. Tactical. All business. I met him that Wednesday under the pretense of a work lunch. I wore business casual, carried a manila envelope, and kept my voice low as we talked in a back booth of a Thai place that smelled like lemongrass and secrecy. Patel didn't flinch at any of the evidence. He just nodded slowly and asked smart questions. Do you have documentation of joint accounts? Yes. I've already started downloading statements. She doesn't check that inbox. Do you have digital evidence, messages, financial transfers, photos? I handed him a USB stick. Do you have any history of emotional or verbal abuse? I hesitated. No, but I've got months of manipulation. Lies. Deflection. He nodded again. She's setting the stage for a narrative. You'll need to be ahead of it. Stay calm. Stay civil. Gather everything. I left the meeting with two things, a packet of preliminary divorce paperwork and clarity. Patel didn't promise revenge. He promised results. Clean separation. Fair division. No loopholes. Next, I hired a digital tech. Not a hacker, just a guy who specialized in metadata and data recovery. His name was Marcus. He was younger than me, wore headphones around his neck, and talked like he lived in 3 browser tabs at once. I paid him in cash. Gave him the tablet. Asked him to preserve everything, timestamps, EXIF data, cloud history, even deleted files. Marcus didn't ask questions. He just said, you'll have a report in 2 days. While that cooked in the background, I started isolating my digital footprint. New passwords. New accounts. I created a private Gmail with 2-factor authentication that she didn't know existed. Set up cloud backups. I went through our home router's login and reset all credentials. Logged out of every synced account on shared devices. Hannah was too distracted to notice. She had a weekend trip planned with her sister, or at least that's what she claimed. I didn't even flinch this time. I kissed her on the forehead, told her to have a great time, and made sure she didn't see me scanning the Uber receipt she left crumpled on the entry table. It was from across town, timestamped to a hotel I recognized from one of Shane's old job listings. I didn't bring it up. I cataloged it. The weekend she was away, I started organizing everything. I built a folder system on an external drive. One for messages. One for transactions. One for calendar inconsistencies. I highlighted sections. Wrote annotations. Treated it like a case file. There were even **TS of her mocking me. In a group chat with Shane and someone named Tiff, I don't know if that was a nickname or an alias she had typed. Colin thinks I'm still helping my aunt with garden stuff. He's so sweet. It's kind of sad. Another one. He made me soup last night. Didn't even notice I came home an hour late. Poor thing. That one stayed with me. I remember making that soup. Chicken tortilla. I grated the cheese by hand. Watched her slurp it up and compliment me. They laughed about it. After that, I stopped looking at the messages for a while. Took a walk. Bought a cheap notebook from the pharmacy and wrote the words, "You will not break." I wrote it over and over until the pen ran dry. On Sunday, before she returned, I cleared out a storage bin in the garage. I packed a small duffel with essentials: passport, laptop, birth certificate, spare keys, flash drives. I even threw in some cash I'd been saving for emergencies. This counted. The plan wasn't to disappear. It was to be ready. If things went sideways, if she tried to flip the script, I needed a head start. Then I moved on to the money. We had 3 joint accounts. 2 checking. 1 savings. She never checked the main one, preferred using her personal debit card from a side gig. I gradually began diverting funds. Nothing obvious. Just enough to build separation. I opened a new personal account under my name only. Moved over direct deposits. Changed billing info on essentials, car insurance, internet, subscriptions. I made photocopies of all her account numbers. Not to hurt her, but to document them. Just in case she tried to freeze me out when the truth came to light. Throughout all this, I remained calm around her. Loving even. We had dinner together. I did the dishes. We even watched a documentary one night and held hands like it was the beginning of something, not the end. She still texted him. I didn't need to look. I just knew. On Wednesday, Marcus emailed me the full report. It was more than I expected. Not just metadata but app history, device logs, even backup files she thought she had deleted. There were call logs going back 6 months. Hundreds of texts. Voice notes. One where she said, "I don't think Colin's ever going to figure it out. He's just not that guy." I saved that one separately. Labeled it underestimation.mp3. I kept my face straight when she came home that night. She talked about trying a new hair color. I told her it would look great. I meant it. Then I emailed Patel and told him I was ready to move. One last step, the house. I wasn't planning to kick her out. But I wasn't going to leave myself vulnerable either. I made sure the utilities were in my name. Verified the mortgage details. Downloaded security camera logs not because I was paranoid but because the truth was now a matter of record. She had rewritten the story once. I wouldn't let her do it again. That night, I stood outside on our back patio watching the sky shift to dusk. I could hear her laughing inside at something on her phone, probably a meme. Probably one he sent. I took a long breath and felt the weight of everything I had done. Not revenge. Not justice. Just preparation. The clean end she would never see coming. We were coming up on 5 years married. I had originally wanted something quiet for our anniversary dinner, maybe a weekend away in the mountains. Hannah had other plans. She said we should do it big this year, something special to celebrate how far we'd come. Funny, right? She rented out the rooftop of the swanky art gallery downtown. Candlelit tables, live string quartet, one of those mixologist bars where every drink has a backstory. I smiled through all the planning conversations. Nodded when she picked the invitation template. Even helped her choose the wine pairings, white with the scallops, red with the lamb. I was the perfect husband on paper. Because that's all it was now. Paper. Behind the scenes, everything was ready. The lawyers. The documents. The timeline. The footage. I had built my case not for court, but for truth. And this night, this curated, polished, made for Instagram night, it would be the stage for it. I didn't feel cruel. I felt clinical. This wasn't some grand spectacle for revenge. It was clarity delivered in the only language she couldn't deflect, evidence and silence. I arrived an hour early. Wore the suit she liked. The navy one that made her say I looked like a walking GQ cover. I pinned my boutonniere white rose, subtle, and greeted guests as they came in, shaking hands, smiling, asking about kids and promotions like nothing was wrong. Family showed up. Her coworkers. My college friend Jared and his wife. Shane didn't show up until closer to sunset, and of course he brought that smug half-grin with him. He wore all black like he was auditioning for a role in his own film. She lit up when she saw him. I watched her from across the room, watched the way her hand lingered on his back as she led him toward the terrace bar. People noticed. I could tell. A few glances. Some muttered comments. But no one said anything. They never do. They just shift in their chairs and pretend it's not their place to ask. The music swelled. Guests laughed. Candles flickered as the city lights bloomed around us. At one point, her father clinked his glass and gave a little toast about love being a journey, not a destination. He said we were inspirational. I almost choked on my champagne. Then it was Hannah's turn. She stood near the main table, holding a mic in one hand and a flute of rose in the other. She looked radiant, flawless makeup, that soft peach dress that shimmered in the low light, hair curled like she was in a wedding catalog. I just want to thank everyone, she said, glowing. 5 years with this man, my Colin, have been the most rewarding, surprising, fulfilling years of my life. He's been patient, kind, hilarious, and stronger than I think he even realizes. She looked at me when she said that. I held her gaze. Didn't blink. She continued, so I put together a little montage, a mix of our best moments. Some memories. Some laughs. Colin, I hope you love it. She gave the signal to the AV guy, a friend of mine from work who owed me a favor. He plugged in the flash drive I'd handed him earlier that day. No one suspected a thing. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. At first, it did show the montage, our wedding, our honeymoon, pictures with friends. Then, 20 seconds in, it glitched. And then it changed. There she was entering the country house with Shane. Laughing. Holding hands. Timestamp visible. A second later, the hallway camera kicked in, her arms around his neck. His hands on her waist. A kiss. The silence hit like a thunderclap. One by one, glasses stopped clinking. Chairs stopped moving. The string quartet faltered and fell completely quiet. You could hear someone whisper, "Oh my God," in the back row. The footage kept playing. Not graphic. Not explicit. Just undeniable. Her voice came through on one clip. He'll never find out. Another clip. A screen recording of her text messages. One with the line, "Honestly, I don't feel guilty anymore. He's too easy to lie to." There was a photo of them in bed. Just their feet visible. Shane's shoes in the corner. Her wristwatch on the nightstand. The location tag visible at the bottom, Crescent Pines Retreat. Exactly where she told me her girls' weekend had been. She stood frozen, still holding her glass. Her smile now a statue. She looked at me, not in horror but in disbelief, as if she still didn't understand what was happening, as if I had wronged her by pulling back the curtain. Then came the final slide, a message that simply read, "To those wondering, yes, this is real. I loved her. She didn't love me back the same way. I'm not angry. I'm just done." The screen went black. I stood up, straightened my jacket and buttoned it slowly. I didn't say a word. I walked past her. Walked through the stunned crowd. Down the gallery stairs. Out into the night. No speeches. No final words. No scene. She didn't follow. She couldn't. I had packed the night before. A single suitcase, locked and zipped. Left it in the trunk. My car was parked 2 blocks away just in case she tried to run after me and make a scene. She didn't. Or maybe she couldn't move. I'll never know. I drove through the city with the windows down. Let the air hit my face. Every light felt brighter than usual. Every second sharper. Like I had been sleepwalking for months and now I was finally violently awake. I turned my phone off that night. Let the calls go unanswered. Let the texts pile up in silence. I didn't want explanations. I didn't want tears. The truth had been enough. And for once, the entire room saw it too. Not just me. Not just my gut screaming in the dark. Everyone. Hannah's world fell apart in less than 48 hours. The footage spread fast. Someone had filmed part of the montage on their phone. Her boss saw it. Her mom saw it. Her phone blew up, then went silent. Shane? He lost everything. His wife served him papers the following week. His employer let him go quietly. As for Hannah, she tried to reach me, but I had already changed numbers, moved money, moved locations. The divorce papers arrived with timestamps, witness statements, and digital records. She didn't contest. Her silence said everything. The house? Mine. The accounts? Locked before she even realized. All that was left for her were whispers, shame, and an empty apartment.